News.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. Carolyn Rounds of Preston is the president of Global Connect Courses, an international charity that educates refugees in Athens, Greece. She's using Preston High School students to teach conversational English to refugees. Rounds said there is not another program like it in Greece, and there was need for a program not associated with religion. Rounds has a background in secondary education, specializing in history and political science. She has also been involved in local service organizations. After the loss of her husband Blaine in 2015, Carolyn was still in her 50s and decided to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. When she arrived in the mission field, she was assigned to assist at the Friendship Center supported by Latter-day Saint charities in Athens, Greece. There were 5 friendship centers in different parts of Europe. When COVID hit, the centers closed. Rounds was already home at the time, but still had ties to the country. She and others wanted to continue their work with refugees. Rounds used some of the models used by the friendship centers to form their Global Connect courses. Global Connect Courses was established to provide learning opportunities for displaced people to get a formalized education certificate. Rounds got permission to use Preston High School to mentor refugees with conversational English. She expects the students to befriend the people that they are working with. KVNU News Time is 4:06. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy, colder, low between 10 and 15 degrees. Partly cloudy Wednesday, mid-20s is all. And then cloudy, slight chance of snow on Thursday, high around 30 degrees. Right now it's 29 at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. It's time to clean up your quilts and blankets. Go to 1st East, 7th South in Brigham City, or 5th East, 9th North in Logan. Mount Logan Laundry, the cleanest spot in town.
In the beginning of time, in a land far away, hid a material in the earth so versatile that once discovered could give way to a century of innovation. From primitive weapons to railroads to buildings that scrape the skies.
What is it? Steel. And without it, our world would look much different. Nothing is stronger or more versatile than steel. And if you want a building that'll stand the test of time, call Northern Steel Buildings at 435-677-7300 or visit northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com.
KVNU News Time is 4:08. No injuries were reported after a driver crashed into a donation center in Salt Lake County. Officials with Unified Police said the crash happened a short time before 6 p.m. in Midvale. There were no injuries reported due to the crash, including the driver and employees inside the center. Police said the truck drove into the break room and the women's bathroom of the building. Both locations were unoccupied during the crash. The crash remains under investigation. And the Salt Lake Bees will leave Salt Lake City for Daybreak in South Jordan. Fox 13 reports the Larry H. Miller Company will announce the team will leave its stadium in Salt Lake City for a new location in 2025. Larry H. Miller Company's corporate communications spokesperson, Amanda Covington, said they are looking forward to building a year-round entertainment destination for the growing southwest quadrant of Salt Lake County. KVNU News Time is 4:09. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
The Above and Beyond Salute, sponsored by Firehouse Subs, recognizing first responders and other deserving individuals in our community. Friday mornings at 8:30 on News Talk KVNU.
Own a small business or a farm? You thought about solar? Listen up. A new USDA grant was announced allocating $300 million for farmers and small business owners to put in solar. That's right. The government will help you get solar installed, covering 40% of the cost. And don't forget, as a business, you can save up to 50 or 60% more with federal and state tax credits. Second Sun Solar will install your system and help with the USDA paperwork. Call Second Sun Solar today at 435-363-9917 or online at utahsolardirect.com.
I'm Elizabeth Smart. Sexual exploitation and violence are unimaginable crimes that far too many people in our communities experience. In the U.S. alone, a person is sexually assaulted every 68 seconds. Every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. It's time these numbers change. Learn more about how you can join me in the fight against child sexual exploitation at malouffoundation.org.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then, someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
In honor of all those we've lost to cancer and those still fighting and thriving, like basketball analyst and cancer champion Dick Vitale.
I want to beat cancer. I'm going to beat it. That's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to win this battle.
Defeating cancer will take all of us. Join our team to help fund game-changing research that saves lives. At the V Foundation, V is for victory over cancer. V is for victory over the odds. V is for victory over health disparities, victory over setbacks, victory over the unknown. V is for victory over giving up.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Join the V Foundation team and help save lives.
Cancer can take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul.
Join our team in the fight against cancer at V.org.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cash Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 a.m. and 102 FM.
Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well. Happy Tuesday, January 17th. The legislature officially in session, for better or worse, and in a lot of ways, I think worse is unfortunately going to be the case this session. More on that later, but I'll preface it this way. The continued nationalization of state legislatures is very evident on day one of our own legislature in session, and that is unfortunate. But why? Well, we'll get into that later on in the show. A pretty uneventful day on day one. It's mostly speeches and welcoming everybody and kind of talking a little bit about priorities and things like that. But we did get some clues into what might be happening in this legislative session and some concerning things when it comes to rural areas. A couple of priorities that were listed just in speeches today that have rural lawmakers, understandably, with both eyebrows up. It's an unfortunate trend, but most of the people who live in Utah live in the Wasatch Front, Salt Lake, and Utah County areas, and so they have more representatives, a higher number of representatives speaking for them during the legislative session for 45 days, which means that rural areas are they're going to need to be on top of things to make sure that we don't get trampled upon. So we'll get to that, what happened on day one of the legislative session, what clues we can divine from the things said today as to what's happening. But before we get to that, dialing down, not back, the temperature a bit with your headlines and smooth jazz.
Is that like a radio dialing?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. Dialing down, back, whatever. Simon Bolivar proclaims the Republic of Colombia on this day in history, 1819. Pretty obscure historical reference there, I know. But it's actually a really, really interesting story, what led to this. And it does have ramifications as far as geopolitical changes around the globe that came about 100 years later. And it all kicked off with this event that literally no one outside of the Republic of Colombia cared about on this day in 1819. Posted a link to some of that history on our Facebook page for those interested, recognizing not everyone would be. This day in 1917, the United States bought the Virgin Islands. Yeah, we just wrote a check.
Just got out, got the debit card.
That's right. That's right. This day in 1973, Ferdinand Marcos became president for life of the Philippines. And we all know how that played out. And this day in 1773, Captain James Cook became the first explorer to successfully cross the Antarctic Circle. And barely did he do that. Famous birthdays today. Benjamin Franklin, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, David Lloyd George, Al Capone, infamous gangster, and Darth Vader himself, actor and voice talent James Earl Jones, was born on this day in 1931.
He's still doing good?
Yeah.
Still, yeah.
Well, he's retired from voicing Darth Vader. That was kind of sad news for Star Wars fans that came a few weeks ago. He said that he continued to voice Darth Vader throughout most of Disney Plus's Star Wars. Spent anytime Darth Vader was there, like the Obi-Wan series and others, he did the voice. But he said it's time for him to fully retire.
And I think he one of the early voices on CNN.
Yeah, he was. This is CNN. He was the original CNN promo voice. I think they still use that a little bit. I actually don't know. I try to stay away from the cable news. Notable mentions in birthdays, because there were a lot of them today. Andy Kaufman, 1949 today, on this day in 1949. Jim Carrey on this day in 1962. And everyone's favorite super talented musician, Kid Rock, born 1971 on this day. So, also Steve Harvey and his mustache. Well, I think his mustache was born about 20 years later. He was born on this day in 1957. So,
he was born with a future mustache, I guess.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was born.
He
with
was in the genes.
The potential for that mustache that has made him so famous, and the suits, I think. But, strange flu case trend this year that experts don't really know quite what to make of. But so the peak of flu season is different every year. No one really knows. It's generally, though, in January. That's generally when it peaks. As of yet, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention don't have a clear explanation of this, though they say medical scientists and doctors are working on understanding this aggressively. But there are signs that flu cases actually peaked the week after Thanksgiving, which may mean... So a peak is generally after a pretty consistent few months of spread. So the reason this is significant is that, and it may tie in with climate change and strange weather patterns, honestly, which contribute to the spread of flu and cold. They believe that what this means is if the peak really was the week after Thanksgiving, and data is, kind of implying that, then that it means that the flu season actually started about a month earlier than anyone predicted. Why is this significant? Well, flu vaccination, public messaging, and things like that do a lot of good every year. But if they're starting a month too late, they're, a month too late. So they're looking at this closely to see if maybe ramping up those vaccination messages and clinics might have to be starting earlier if this trend continues. So, also from local news, this is I'm pretty excited about this, honestly, but the New American Task Force will be convening in Cache County on January 24th. A lot of people right now wondering what exactly that is and why they should care. Well, the meeting is part of a statewide effort to develop a comprehensive strategy to maximize economic opportunity in the state of Utah. But it's complex. They're working with social integration, civic potential, and all of this in an effort to sort of build up economic opportunity throughout the state. And they are bringing this touring panel of experts and discussion to Cache Valley. Tuesday, January 24th. It'll be held at 11:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. at the Cache County Historic Courthouse. And the New Americans Task Force was first organized in May of 2022 as a joint effort of Governor Cox's Office of Economic Opportunity and the state's Center for Immigration Assistance. The goal of this is to host these regional meetings around the state to coordinate efforts and start a discussion that is more inclusive in rural communities, recognizing that there are a lot of new folks, immigrants, even refugees in rural communities that play an economic role, but could play an even larger economic role, which would benefit them and the communities. And oftentimes it's just a matter of connecting the dots on available resources. And finally, our last headline with Smooth Jazz for today, a laser that scientists believe can redirect lightning strikes. A first-time ever real-world demo of the technology was conducted successfully. And the goal of this, of course, is to learn more about how we can influence weather ourselves. This is, put this in the category along with things like cloud seeding and things like that. But it could also prove as a lightning protectant. Researchers reported in Nature Photonics. There are a lot of scientific journals out there. Scientists have successfully used this laser to wrangle electricity in the lab, and they put it to test in the real world with this first ever demonstration of the technique that has real world implications, especially when it comes to air travel. But what's interesting about this is how it works. The anti-lightning tech, as they're calling it, is basically a laser-based lightning rod. Meters long, metal pole, rooted to the ground or on an airplane or the top of the building. And the metal's conductivity lures in lightning that might otherwise strike elsewhere, nearby, somewhere unpredictable. And it feeds that electricity safely into the earth. That's how a lightning rod works. But the area's shielding by the lightning rod is, limited to the height of the rod. You'd have to have a really, really tall lightning rod to protect a large building or a moving airplane. Just not physically possible. But a moving laser that can do the same thing, that could be a tiny little device sitting on the wing of a plane or the top of the building. The laser blasts short, intense bursts of infrared light at the clouds, about 1,000 times per second. And the light pulses ripped electrons off of air molecules, creating a temporary plasma-charged lightning rod. It's really cool stuff, and the best thing about this, it's cheap. The parts. We don't have Radio Shacks anymore. But if there was something like that still, you could buy them all there for under $100 and build your own laser lightning rod using this high-frequency energy laser.
That'd be cool. We used to have one in the mall, Radio Shack.
Yeah, I miss them. I built some weird things. Check it out. Laser-based weather influencing, making some breakthrough, first-time ever public demos this week. And a video of this is alone worth your time. Check it out. I've linked to the video on our Facebook page of a laser deflecting lightning from one point to another in a split second. It's actually a beautiful thing to see. Those are your headlines with Smooth Jazz. We'll be back with more For the People right after this.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Ashley Smith, this is Will Feelwright from KVNU, and I'm calling to announce that you have been selected as the winner of this week's Above and Beyond Salute from Firehouse Subs.
Well, thank you. Wow.
Ashley is a strong, amazing friend who is not only a wife and mother, but a full volunteer firefighter, EMT, and recently stepped up to the plate in filling the assistant chief position at the Paradise Fire and Rescue.
Wow. I don't know what to say. Thank you.
Recognizing first responders and other deserving individuals in our community. Friday mornings at 8:30 on News Talk KVNU.
High school sports are as American as apple pie. And going to a game or meet is a chance to see the stars of tomorrow shine today. But as anybody who's ever attended a high school sporting event in Utah knows, you can't have the stars without the stripes. High schools are currently looking for new officials in almost every sport. Who looks good in stripes? Anybody looking for a way to stay connected to a sport they love. If you like the idea of giving back to your community while earning a few extra bucks, chances are you'd look good in stripes too. We want to hear from you. We need to hear from you. No officials means no games. No stripes means no stars. And what kind of America would that be? Utah needs more high school officials. Go to highschoolofficials.com to sign up or learn more. That's highschoolofficials.com.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Coming up, scientist at Utah State University, and a name you might remember from the elections. He ran for public office last fall. Dr. Patrick Belmont will be joining us, courtesy of our friend Craig Hislop from the KVNU newsroom, to talk about this report that, as the legislative session kicks off, is kind of clouding everything. A report, a report basically saying we've got less time than originally thought to do something about the drought-induced harm caused, and human-induced harm caused to the Great Salt Lake. We'll talk about that coming up on the other side of the news. Legislature kicked off today with their opening days, just a big theatrical event. So they do gavel in and do some business. They have to, agree on rules, but there were no major changes to the rules to start things off. And day one today of what is a 45 working days, by the way, not just 45 calendar days. So there's a lot of time for them to do a lot of damage, is how the how the general reaction from the public goes. What did they talk about? Water, of course. The Senate President Stuart Adams gave us a little talk. It was kind of a strange one, too. I'm not sure what point it was he was making. He talked about, in his address to fellow senators as Senate president. He said I think what he's trying to do was say something encouraging, that he believes that they can do some good here through, the public purse and public policy that might, mitigate some of the harm being caused to the Great Salt Lake, which is basically the Great Salt Lake is deteriorating because we're using so much water upstream. And that does include, upstream here in northern Utah, but also some parts of the Salt Lake Valley where there are tributaries to the lake as well. And then drought. The two combined. Drought might go away. It will eventually. Well, maybe. I don't know. But we live in a desert state. Water is always going to be scarce, even when we have some plentiful years in between. So that part we can't do too much about. How much we use, we can do a lot about. And Adams, in his talk today, said, trying to say again that he believes, we can, that we have the means to do so, and definitely the will to do so. He said in his talk that his ancestors, his great, I think, I got that right. Do I have enough greats? Yeah. His great grandfather was a part of a group that came here and homesteaded and built what was known, I think it's still known as the Homer Reservoir. It's a tiny reservoir in respect to the reservoirs we have now, but it was one of the first. And he said they did that without metal shovels, and there was some confusion on the floor, some perplexed looks on senators' faces as they tried to connect the dots to figure out what he was talking about. But I think the message he was trying to say is we can do this. We have tools, and they were able to build reservoirs without metal shovels. We can do this. I believe what was his message. So during the opening talks as well, President Adams and House Speaker, Republican lawmaker Brad Wilson did their best to put a rosy shine on something that is probably going to be one of the more, if not most, controversial issues of the session. And I'll be blunt, it's a cynical move by lawmakers who are backers of school vouchers. Utah voter vouchers have a pretty storied and consistent history in Utah, and that history is that lawmakers just cannot leave it alone. A handful of lawmakers, most of them from Utah County, have just been determined for more than a decade to make school vouchers a thing in Utah. But they have been thwarted each and every time by rural Utahns and rural Utah lawmakers getting an earful from rural constituents. The reason for this is that vouchers would benefit wealthy families in Salt Lake and Utah counties, but not do really much of anything other than take money away from schools in rich counties, Garfield counties, Grand County, and even Cache County, where private schools are not as plentiful, and for some of these counties won't be anytime soon. So rural lawmakers have consistently been the thorn in the side of these voucher proponents, who again have just not been able to drop it. It's been through ballot initiatives. It's been through multiple attempts at rebranding. In fact, just last year, lawmakers tried to pull one over on rural Utah. Utah County lawmakers tried to pull one over on rural Utah, renaming them Hope Scholarships. Hope Scholarships failed, again, because rural lawmakers got an earful from their constituents, and the governor, who represents the entire state, not a single House district or Senate district, was also getting an earful. Well, they're back at it again. And today, in their opening speeches, both Speaker of the House Brad Wilson and Senate President Stuart Adams, both proponents of school voucher programs, have said, that we're going to do good things with education this year. We're going to give teachers a raise, and we're going to give parents choice. That's how they always phrase it, because they don't want to use the word voucher. But make no mistake about it, this is a school voucher proposal. They're calling it, I don't even remember what they're calling it. Let's see. There's a Twitter account. Someone's already created a Twitter account shilling for this. Anyway, the argument being made is that one size doesn't fit all, and what they're hoping is that the public opinion tide has shifted. In fact, Majority Leader Mike Schultz said during his opening remarks, the tide is shifting and parents want options. Public schools in Utah are great, but it's not what works for everybody, which is true. But what does that have to do with taking money away from public schools in order to funnel that money to private for-profit schools? So Schultz kind of skirting around the actual issue of why school vouchers aren't popular here in Utah, intentionally skirting around that to make it seem as if this is just something great for parents. The argument in response to this will be parents who want to send their kids somewhere other than private schools already have that option. It's not something new we're creating here. What you're talking about is taking money away from the public schools in order to subsidize that option for them. And that's where this will likely fall. But the hope this year, and Senate President Stuart Adams also skirted around this in his remarks, kind of ignoring the fact that they're doing this, but they plan to give teachers in Utah a raise. It's a long overdue raise, and it's meant to solve a teacher crisis, actually. This isn't just being nice. Utah is having a hard time retaining and hiring new teachers compared to other states, and the reason for that is the pay is higher in other states. So a $6,000 raise, which is $4,000 in salary, $2,000 in benefits, that teachers would see tacked on to their existing salaries starting next year if this passes. Lawmakers have said, we'll do that, as the governor has asked us to do in his budget, but we're going to attach a school voucher program to the same bill. This has been rumored. It wasn't anything official until today when both the Speaker of the House and Senate President said, yes, this is what we're doing. What happens from here, I don't know. The hope is, obviously, this is pretty transparent, that teachers will be less likely to oppose a school voucher program, and the public might be as well if denying the lawmakers who really, really, really want school vouchers, their voucher program, also means teachers don't get a raise. I say call their bluff. Dare them to stand in front of the media and the public and their constituents and say, these four of us from Utah County want this so much, and the rest of the legislature are afraid to buck us on this for political reasons. There's always an election year around the corner, right? So we denied teachers raises if we can't have our vouchers. Put them there. Push them into that corner, and let's have. Now, if the tide has shifted, and the public does support this, then rural lawmakers will be able to get behind it. They'll have cover if their constituents back it. If they don't, this is a cynical move to try and extort a voucher program from public education and teacher salaries, which, again, are being increased so that we can hire teachers. We have a shortage in this state because the wages are too low. This is not how you do public policy. But, again, made official today in opening remarks by Senate President Stuart Adams and House Speaker Brad Wilson that this is indeed what they plan to do, to hijack the teacher salary increase push by attaching this school voucher program that I don't remember what they're calling, but they'll have some other name for it that will not say vouchers because they know vouchers are unpopular. And that's kind of all you need to know about things like Hope Scholarships or whatever they decide to call them. Check it out. It was an interesting day, and most interesting to me is that both the Senate President and the Speaker of the House spent most of their time in their remarks talking about exactly this, pre-selling it, basically, in their opening remarks. I expect this will be one of the more controversial issues of the session. So there's your recap of day one of the 45-day legislative session, which is officially underway as of 10 a.m. this morning. We'll check in with our lawmakers throughout the session, by the way, here on the show, get updates on a regular basis on the bills they're working on and also how they feel about this voucher issue and others coming down the pike from other lawmakers. We'll be doing that on a regular basis every Tuesday and Thursday here on the show for the 45-day session. On the other side of the news, what did the report say that's getting so much traction? Even today, in opening remarks from lawmakers, a report saying we've got less time than we think to save the Great Salt Lake. Why and how this research was done right here in our own backyard, by the way, at Utah State University. An update on that coming up after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:41. A 37-year-old Logan man has been arrested for allegedly choking a 16-year-old child, according to police. Sammy Lee Hodges was booked into the Cache County Jail Sunday night. According to a probable cause statement from the Logan City Police Department, officers were called to the dispute earlier on Sunday. The alleged teenage victim explained how Hodges had placed him in a chokehold, impeding his airway during the altercation. Hodges admitted to officers that he put the child in the chokehold. Police also found evidence to indicate the suspect's actions were not self-defense. The teenager had visible physical injuries following the incident. Jail records show Hodges was booked on suspicion of aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony. He's being held pending formal arraignment in First District Court. Funeral services were held for 16-year-old Jackie Nunez on Monday in Cedar City. The services come after an emotional week for the Piute County community and the Nunez family. Earlier in the week, a vigil was held at Piute High School. Nunez was shot and killed on January 8th. The 17-year-old boy, who is accused of shooting and killing Nunez, has been charged in court as an adult. If you'd like to assist the Nunez family with memorial contributions, there has been a fund set up through State Bank of Southern Utah for Jacqueline Nunez. Utah State Aggie men's basketball team back at home tonight as they face UNLV, 7 o'clock. It's a blackout game. They're asking people to wear black. Al Lewis will be talking about the game with former Aggie great Jalen Moore right at 6 o'clock tonight. You're on KBNU, and then we'll be back on after the game's conclusion. KBNU time is 4:43. KBNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy, colder, overnight low 10 to 15. Partly cloudy, mid-20s on Wednesday. A slight chance of snow developing again Thursday, high around 30. It's 29 right now at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Adams Wealth Advisors. They want to understand your family, job, hobbies, and goals to earn your long-term financial trust. Visit adamswealthadvisors.com to schedule a time with an advisor today. And let's get the closing numbers on Wall Street now from Edward Jones.
This is financial advisor Clayton McMurdy from Edward Jones, bringing you the closing market financial report for Tuesday, January 17th. Markets took a breather today after Goldman Sachs announced its worst revenue and earnings miss in a decade. However, it's not all bad news as other major banks like Morgan Stanley beat expectations. The U.S. 10-year yield moved above 3.5% as fixed income investors await further Fed comments, and the yield curve underwent some bearish steepening. European and Asian shares were mixed, but energy prices are higher with oil trading above $81 a barrel. Comments from OPEC showed further optimism for global growth and falling inflation as China continues to reopen, bringing manufacturing supply online and smoothing out kink supply chains. Forward-looking indicators are still pointing to a swift fall in inflation in the coming months, but the CPI index is still at levels well above the Fed's 2% target. A Bank of America survey showed investor allocation to U.S. equities is reaching lows not seen since 2005. However, Eurozone stocks are being overweighted as Europe has staved off an energy crisis and the U.S. dollar continues to weaken. We think the dollar will continue to retrace, which will help support international equity returns. Investors also moved into emerging market stocks. This is broadly consistent with a risk-on move by investors, consistent with improving sentiment as investors start to look past any economic weaknesses in early 2023. In U.S. equities, the Dow was down 392 points at 33,911. The NASDAQ was up 16 points at 11,095. And the S&P was down 8 points at 3,991. In bond markets, the 10-year Treasury yields are currently at 3.55%. And in commodity markets, the price of crude oil was up $1.31 at $81.17, and the spot price of gold was down $10.60 at $1,911.10. This has been today's closing financial market report brought to you by Clayton McMurdy of Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 1309 North Main Street in Logan. If you'd like any additional information or current stock prices, please give our office a call at 435-753-0537, or you can visit any of our branches here in Cache Valley or online at edwardjones.com.
Elements has delicious lunch specials, 2 for $30, or the new soup, salad, and bread special for just $10. It's tasty and quick. Elements lunch menu is full of scrumptious items prepared with a personal touch. Wood-fired pizzas are an excellent choice that include barbecue chicken and the bee's knees. The fresh battered halibut fish and chips with seasoned fries is always a hit. And don't forget the fan favorite Munster burger, casual or professional. Open Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 8 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11:30 to 9 p.m. Visit theelementsrestaurant.com for reservations today.
It's the January closeout and clean out time at UNI Furniture with lots of really good value store-wide. Pick out a chair, lift chairs, accent chairs, rocker recliners. Choose options like power or manual, fabric or leather, chairs with lumbar support and heat. They've also picked up lots of Maloof products at closeout prices. A queen hybrid mattress is $489, normally twice that. Queen headboards less than $100, and while they last, queen adjustable bases $199. For 93 years, a family-owned business where you'll like their honest approach. There's always a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
Also getting a lot of traction at the legislative session today, even on opening day. A recent report showing we've got less time than anticipated to save the Great Salt Lake. The research done right here in our own backyard at Utah State University. With the details, here's Craig.
Well, thank you, Jason. Last October, Utah State University conducted an open public survey of Utahns about the future of the Great Salt Lake. The lake is managed as a public trust resource for the people of Utah. It is in decline. It's reaching record lows. In fact, it did in 2021 and again last year. This survey was conducted by USU's Quinney College of Natural Resources. Hopefully we'll get to that survey in a moment. But we were reminded of the survey just this week when we learned of a new report on the Great Salt Lake, a report assembled by Patrick Belmont and Janice Brainey of the USU Department of Watershed Sciences, working with 30 other water experts. Dr. Belmont joins us today. Patrick, I don't know if you had a direct connection to that survey. Did you see much of it? Did it reflect that people of Utah do have a concern about this lake?
It did. I didn't have a direct connection myself, but a close colleague of mine in the Environment and Society Department here at USU conducted that survey. And it was showing that overwhelmingly Utahns are aware of the Great Salt Lake problem and very concerned about it, and they want to see the problem get solved.
The survey, did it uncover a lot? I mean, are there strong opinions that the population of this state have about that?
There are, and to me, even it was a little bit surprising to see how strong the feelings were. It was well over 70% of people were very concerned about it, were willing to see their own, tax dollars go towards solutions. But the critical thing is that we're investing in the right solutions. Even with a lot of money, if you're investing it in the wrong places, we may not be moving in the right direction. So that's the key right now, is to make sure that all the investments that we're making with public funding are going to the most effective solutions.
Your report gets right to the point. It explains that without major intervention, is the words that were used, the Great Salt Lake could disappear within 5 years. What's the definition of major intervention?
Well, we need to get about another 1 million acre-feet of water to the lake. Right now, that's about the amount that goes in there on an annual basis over the last couple of years. It's 1 million acre-feet. Imagine 1 million acres of land filled 1 foot deep in water. That's 1 million acre-feet. We need to basically double that amount that's being delivered to the lake. And there's a lot of policy and archaic laws that are still kind of binding us to an old system that still incentivizes waste, that makes it hard for people to trade water to the most efficient uses. And we, of course, also want to make sure we're protecting people. We just don't want water going to the wealthiest among us. We want to make sure that everybody who needs water is able to get the water they need. But we're trying to shift the culture to kind of a lake-first mentality, where people are thinking about this is a major problem, potentially catastrophic problem for northern Utah, and we got to make sure we turn it around.
Do systems exist now to start that process of another 1 million acre-feet? Is that going to happen over a long period of time?
Well, the legislature started the process in the last session. We've known about this problem for nearly a decade now, and they really had not made much progress until last session. And they did put forward a number of bills that started to change the laws in the right direction, to make it a little bit easier for people to trade water use temporarily or permanently, and make sure that we can get water conserved. One of the big loopholes right now is, if somebody here in Cache Valley decides to give their water right over to the Great Salt Lake for a couple of years, and they can get paid for that. But right now there's no guarantee that those water droplets are going to get all the way down there. It could be some other water user between here and Great Salt Lake that ends up using them. It could just go into a reservoir. So that's one of the big loopholes they need to close in this current legislative session, is making sure that water conserved, throughout Utah is going to end up getting down to the lake.
In your mind, is this a multi-year challenge to get the water there eventually? Can it happen quicker?
It's going to be certainly a multi-year effort. Just to give you a sense, if we're successful in getting an additional 1 million acre-feet to the lake every year, we're still looking at 15 to 20 years to refill the lake to a healthy level. So, there are some people who are looking at actions that are basically going to sustain it at this really low level, but we're experiencing a lot of problems even at this level that it's at right now. A lot of toxic dust, a lot of really stressed ecosystems, 9,000 jobs on the line. So, keeping it at this really low level should not be the goal. The goal needs to be turning it around and getting it up to a healthy level. But, even with those large efforts to get another 1 million acre-feet, we're still talking 15 to 20 years. This is going to be a long-term haul.
I'm assuming there are many explanations that have led to this being so bad. What happened?
Well, it's a combination of things. How we are using water is the dominant factor. We have had decades of living in a little bit of a fantasy land of thinking that water is going to be plentiful and forthcoming forever. We're the second driest state in the nation, and we have some of the highest water use per capita in the nation. And, that's just not a sustainable thing, and it's really caught up with us. We have known for, decades really, but certainly over the last decade it's really been highlighted that this consumptive water use that we have, much of which is agriculture, about 75% of which is agriculture. We need to find better ways to do it and really optimize that use. Certainly we need agriculture. We need to be supporting them and making the transition they need to make, but we absolutely have to be getting more water down to the lake. If we don't get more water down to the lake, agriculture gets hurt, tourism gets hurt, our quality of life here gets hurt, our air quality. So that needs to be the focus for sure.
We live up here in the northern end of the state. Is it a yearly thing that we all parts of the state access Great Salt Lake water?
Well, what we use is the water that would naturally have flowed into Great Salt Lake. So we divert about 2/3 of that water right now. And so that's where, that consumptive use that we really need to look hard at and figure out where we can make cuts in that consumptive use and get more of that water down to the lake. That's the biggest work that we need to be doing right now. The longer-term forecast for northern Utah is that we're going to be drier in the future. Not only are we using more water than we have right now, in the future we absolutely expect to have less water available. And so that's all the more reason we need to make some cutbacks now and make sure that we're doing it in a fair and equitable way.
Dr. Patrick Belmont of USU's Department of Watershed Sciences, the report calls for immediate legislative action. You've talked about some action that was taken a year ago. Are we moving along at a pace we should be, or does it have to happen quicker?
Well, I would have loved to have seen us start 10 years ago, but they did make some good strides last legislative session. I know there are a lot of people with their eyes on this. That's the thing that makes me most optimistic. The governor is talking about this every day. The Speaker of the House, Brad Wilson, is talking about this every single day. There's a lot of good people working on this. I'll say I'm cautiously optimistic that the legislature is going to make good headway on this. But it's going to be, there's a lot of moving parts. We need to make sure that it's done the right way. There's certainly no time to lose.
Well, we've talked about this. The state is in the throes of an ongoing multi-year drought. The plus right now is the state's current snowpack is in pretty good shape, but that's just 1 year. And I keep hearing people say it's going to take many years to get through the drought. And then I heard a report last night on one of the TV stations that, we have evidence that the lake has risen a half of a foot recently, and I thought, well, it's so far gone. How long's that's not much of a rate to fill it back up.
It's not. It's going to take a long time, and we can't get too distracted from these little wins. We should appreciate them, but we should know that this is going to be a long haul, and it's going to take a long time. And there are certainly no guarantees that we're going to continue to get a good water year even this winter. I mean, we're looking in very good shape right now. It's the 8th best snowpack we've had on record. But remember last year, we've pretty much flatlined from this point on.
That's true. That's what happened a year ago.
There's nothing preventing that from happening. I'm certainly hoping it doesn't. But looking out to next year and in future years, the long-term trend is that we're going to have less snowpack. And there's a little bit of feedback here. The Great Salt Lake contributes about 5 to 10% of our snowpack. So as it goes down, it has an impact on our snowpack as well. Yeah. And that's not a good thing.
Your report encourages the governor to declare a state of emergency. Has he shown any inclination toward that?
I don't have that contact with the governor to know how he's thinking about that. From what I know, he's keeping all options on the table. He knows how serious this is and that we have to get it right, and that there's going to be some pain involved. I think that the most important thing is that we're spreading out the pain as evenly as we can, and we're all putting in our part and contributing what we can.
And is there any precedent to guide us? In other words, is there somewhere in our country or in the world anywhere where they faced this kind of a challenge with a lake this size and rallied to save that resource that we're losing it the way we are? Do we have something to look to know how to go about this?
I wish I had really good news for you, but, more of the examples we have are examples of what we don't want to do. Owens Lake in California was drained by Los Angeles. California, or specifically Los Angeles, just spent $2.5 billion mitigating dust from Owens Lake because they dried it out. We don't want that kind of thing to happen here. Great Salt Lake is much larger and much more toxic sediments coming off of that when the wind blows. So it would be much more expensive than even what they're paying for Owens Lake. The Aral Sea, is another example. This was in Russia, and Russia decided to start diverting water to grow cotton in the desert, really water-intensive crop. And when they saw the lake going down, they just kept doing it. And, that's an example of exactly what we don't want to do. I believe we'll get it done. This is Utah. We've got a lot of good people with their eyes on this. We know how important it is. But it's going to take a lot of different people providing perspectives, providing data. and moving things in the right direction.
Well, it's an issue for which I think all Utahns should be concerned and interested. Here's hoping your report gets all the attention it deserves. And, Patrick, we appreciate you taking so much time with us to help us understand this.
I'm happy to do it. Thanks for covering this important topic.
Let's get back to Jason and Bill.
Thank you, Craig and Patrick. And coming up in Hour 2, Brigham City Museum spotlighting the great